It's time for the Ella Johnson Show. Thanks for tuning in to the Ella Johnson Show, where there are two sides to every story. Enjoy the broadcast. Stay tuned. Hello everyone, and welcome to the Ella Johnson Show. I am so excited to have you here tonight. Thank you. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you're watching from YouTube, do me a favor and subscribe to my channel since you're already there. If you're watching from Facebook, thank you as well. Share the broadcast. Just share your heart out. Tonight, the conversation is going to get real, and it's going to be a lot of information that you need to know going into the midterm. So I want you to share. If you're watching from LinkedIn or wherever, we appreciate you for tuning in to the Ella Johnson Show. As you know, this is Black History Month, and it's Black History all month long. I couldn't think of a better conversation for Black History than the one tonight. I have my friend V. V is in the house. Welcome. Welcome, V, to the Ella Johnson Show.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
You're a newbie. I want you to tell everybody who you are.
Yes. So my name is Vinod. Most people call me V, and I came from a background of really talking about sports, hence all the background of the Houston Texans in the background and my hat. And I decided that I needed to switch over to talk about politics because of everything that's going on in this country. And so I host a channel called Political Bear Nation, where I talk about the historical aspects of the United States and intertwine that with modern society. And that's what I try to do. So I'm here to talk to you about everything that's going on with, the Voting Act and the SAVE Act and the midterms.
Oh, yeah. Well, listen, I couldn't think of a better person to have this conversation with, because we got to get deep into it, guys. Because listen, Black History Month is important. However, there's the SAVE Act that what V just talked about that we need to be concerned about, right? We need to be concerned about it. And I think there's a lot of stuff going on in social media about, oh no, you just have to have this. Oh no, it's like they're guessing. Well, we're going to take the guessing out of it. We're going to talk about it. But before we do that tonight, I want to share this video with you guys, because this is kind of taking you back. And I think it's important for you to kind of see what Black history is and why this voting is so important. Take a listen.
We took people to courthouse after courthouse. The names of all prospective registrants would be posted in the newspaper. So your creditors and your potential political enemies would know that you had committed the sin of trying to register to vote.
Before the Voting Rights Act of 1965, casting a vote as a Black American could cost you your life. You could be beaten, jailed, fired from your job, or driven from your home, all for daring to participate in democracy. Voting wasn't just discouraged, it was violently suppressed. For generations, local and state governments used every tool available to deny African Americans their right to vote. They enforced poll taxes and literacy tests. These were laws designed specifically to keep Black people out of the voting booth. These legal barriers were reinforced by a culture of intimidation, harassment, and economic retaliation. Meanwhile, the Supreme Court routinely upheld these discriminatory practices, allowing the oppression to continue. Despite being systematically excluded, Black communities never stopped pushing for representation. They knew that without it, their interests would never be protected. But every attempt to vote was met not just with legal obstruction, but with brutality. White elites responded with threats and violence, determined to maintain control. That's when leaders like Fannie Lou Hamer rose up, refusing to be silenced and urging others to do the same. Grassroots organizations like COFO, the NAACP, and SNCC organized voter registration drives, educated communities, and challenged unjust laws. Their work was met with beatings, arrests, bombings, and still they pressed on. Black Americans weren't just asking for equality, they were demanding it.
Wow.
Yeah, and
Ugh.
unfortunately, we're seeing some of the same laws trying to be passed today.
And that's what I want to get into. We're gonna dig into that because guys, listen, I bring subjects here that I think are beneficial to us, and I like to make sure that it's fitting for the time. But real talk, tonight we are standing at crossroads that feels familiar. Now let's keep it 100. A piece of paper is threatening to reshape the American electorate. It's called the SAVE Act. And if it clears the Senate, the honor system of American voting is over. But don't think that this is just about birth certificate or passport. This is about a fundamental shift in the American contract. For the first time in our history, the federal government is moving to say that being a citizen isn't enough. You have to prove it on their terms with their specific documents in person before you can ever touch a ballot. Really? Now, to some, this is security. To others, it is the return of a ghost we thought we buried 60 years ago. We've been here before. Let me tell you how. We remember the character vouchers of the Jim Crow South. We remember the literacy test designed to be unpassable. We remember when a black man's word wasn't enough to prove his right to exist in this voting booth. Now, today, when we see that two-thirds of black Americans lack a valid passport and millions more face hurdles to find a physical birth certificate, we have to ask, is history repeating itself but under a different name this time? Now, tonight, we're going beyond the headlines. We're going to dig deeper. We're going to talk about stuff that you probably haven't heard about during this conversation. So let's dig in.
Yeah,
All
so
right.
so let me start by saying that Republicans are trying to pass this legislation with the
Right.
guise of saying that most Americans want it. And they are partially true, which is that if you look at the polls, you have over 70% of Americans saying that they believe in some sort of voter ID law. But with anything in life, the devil's in the details. And what most people don't realize is that either they or people they know don't have the documents necessary to be able to vote. And that is the thing that we need to talk about. First, let's talk about how this is going to disenfranchise women in general.
Okay.
Over 70 million, 69 million women, close to 70 million women will have trouble meeting these requirements simply because their married name does not match their birth certificate. So, obviously, in American culture here, most women take the name of their male spouse. In fact, 4 million males have taken their spouse's name. So, while this will affect 69 million women, it will also affect 4 million men. That marriage issue is the biggest deal. So now the next thing would be people to say, well, now they can just go get the correct documents. Now, this is the other issue, is that it's not just based on gathering the documents, it's about how can you get those documents.
That's right.
Before I even bring up how difficult it is, I want people to go back to 2016 and think about what happened when the voter ID scenarios started happening back then. This is obviously not something that's brand new. This has been tried and tried and tried for decades. And let's take a closer look at Wisconsin. When Wisconsin passed their voter ID law, it affected 300,000 people. And they were able to disenfranchise many of them. How? Well, when you are a governor or a state legislature and you are Republican run, and your goal isn't to maintain free and fair elections, your goal is to have the outcome turn a certain way, you can make the rules and regulations affect us only a certain party. So what they did is that in Democratic, mostly Democratic counties, they changed the rules of when DMV locations were open. In one county, they found that there were only 3 days in one election year where someone could actually go to the DMV to get a new ID. In most other places, it was meant to make sure that if you were a poor worker that couldn't take off, say if you're working at Burger King, can you ask your boss to take off so you can get some updated ID information? They're not going to let you.
That's right.
And because most of that stuff happens during business hours,
Yeah.
Monday through Friday, the times when you're working, you can't take time off. So if the choice is between putting food on the table or voting, most people are going to choose to put food on the table. And that's what we saw in Wisconsin, that a lot of the Democratic counties were suppressed with this law. And what they're trying to do with the SAVE Act is essentially make this nationwide. So this will not only affect the women, this will not only affect married men who change their last name, this will affect the poor community, this will affect middle income, lower income families who can't afford to take time off to go get their paperwork. On the surface, it may seem fine. Why wouldn't you need an ID to prove that you're a non-citizen, to prove that you're a citizen? But the fact of the matter is, this is a problem. This is a solution in search of a problem. We
Yeah.
have the Brennan organization. We have the Heritage Foundation. We have so many independent reporting agencies. But I'm going to focus on just the Heritage Foundation, which most people probably realize is a think tank for Project 2025 and a huge supporter of Donald Trump. They have been looking at this, investigating this for 25 years. And what they did is they took pockets of the voting population and tried to prove that voting ID requirements were important. They actually proved the opposite. They looked at a bucket of 23.5 million voters, each an individual voter. So they looked at all 23.5 million votes. And what they found was in those 23.5 million votes, only 30 were suspected of being non-citizens. Of those 30, those were non-citizens, only 9 were actually convicted, meaning the others were just accusations. That's a rate of 0.0000001%.
Yeah.
This is what they're trying to solve. And they're doing it under the guise of saving your vote.
Yeah. I'm so glad. Thank you. That was great. He laid it out for you guys. Now, I just want to make sure that everybody's clear. This new stuff that you have to present, this is for people who are not registered already. Yes?
See, that's the thing. There's a federal law, and then there is what Republicans will do in the states to expand this law. So, again, something that a lot of people don't understand is that the federal law is honestly one component. It's horrible. We don't want it to get passed. But realize that there are 28 state legislators controlled by Republicans. There are 26 states that have Republican governors. They have almost all have said that they will implement new rules to make it harder for you to get to vote. Now, you're right. If you're already registered, you should not have a problem. But most of these governors and state legislators are planning to kick you off the rolls. So, for example, if you haven't voted in the past election, they could say that's a reason why they want to kick you off
Yes.
on the
Yes.
vote. So there are plenty of reasons why. And the SAVE Act also wants to nationalize this, meaning that they want to control the local voting rolls. So they want to decide who gets kicked off. So obviously they want Donald Trump to be able to have more power in the midterms by getting more Republicans in the House and in the Senate. So what they want to do is kick off as many Democrats as possible and come up with rules saying, oh, this person, like I said, hasn't voted in so long, or this person has moved in the past 6 months, and I don't think that they are, the legitimate. We need them to come in and show some more data, and they can come up with any rules that they want to
Yeah.
kick you off the voter rolls.
Yeah, that's exactly my point. Because right now, they have it where a lot of states have turned over their voter rolls because of this intimidation from Trump. And they've turned over those voter rolls. Some have refused, and now some are getting sued because of it. So
That's
when
correct.
this raid happened in Atlanta, because I've been talking about that on the show. When that raid happened, there was some type of there was some kind of court hearings or something going on, and Trump was losing. So he opted to say, okay, well, we'll just go in there and he's been telling people, turn over those voter rolls. They even said that in Minnesota when all of that was going on. Turn it over. So everybody's like, well, what did they want for it? V just told you. Because they can go in there and they can just say, take this person out. Like you said, they haven't voted. Take that name, sounds like they're probably foreign. Take that. They want control. Instead of letting the states manage their stuff like the Constitution says, they want to now make it nationalized so that the government, the federal government, controls elections. Do you guys now see why there's a problem with this SAVE Act? It's not just the SAVE, there's a whole nother one that's coming behind it. It's the MEGA Act, Make Elections Great Again. When you put all of those together, we got a big whammy. Okay. Have you heard about the MEGA one?
I know, yeah, but from what my understanding is, that doesn't have even a chance of even passing the House.
I hope not. You think this one's bad. That one's even worse, especially if you put them together. So I'm glad we're covering this up because I've seen social media. I've been browsing through and I see a lot of people giving all this advice to others about what they need and don't need. Now, the women, you said that their names have changed. I'm a perfect example. All right. I voted in the last, 6 elections. I'm going to give you my scenario because it may be similar to other people. I voted in like the last 6 elections or so. My ID says Ella Campbell, but my birth certificate says Ella Johnson. How would I, when I get ready to go vote, is that going to be a problem for me?
Yes. So what they could do, if, for example, say if you're removed from the registration, you have to go register to vote. They're going to ask you to show identification, and that could be your birth certificate. And that's the thing, is that if your birth certificate doesn't match, well, now that you have to now say why that doesn't match. You have to prove other documentation.
Divorce.
And yes, your divorce decree. But again, this is the thing, is that, and this is what I want to stress, is that we already have an issue where Republican governors and Republican state legislators are trying to take everyone off the rolls. This just gives them ammunition, because what's going to happen, which happens every year, is that when Republicans try to make these rules, it goes to court. Courts typically say, no, you can't do this. It's too close to the election. You are disenfranchising these people. That happens typically every election year. But if the SAVE Act passes, now courts will say, well, the SAVE Act passes, it's now law. You do have, the governor and the state legislator actually are within their rights to take that away until you can prove it. And so now we are giving ammo to what's been going on for decades, because for decades they have been trying to disenfranchise people. The difference is that for the most part, not always, not all the time, but they have been protecting the right to vote. Now, obviously, the Supreme Court gutted the Voting Rights Act, a lot of it, but for a lot of court cases have protected the right to vote. That no longer will be the case anymore. And now imagine when you have, this is eventually going to affect what most people think is going to be about 20 million people when it comes down to it. Now, I've said how many has a potential to affect. If we talk about the reality of the situation, of the people that won't be able to provide this information, we're talking about 20 million people. Because like I said, it's not just marriage. Think about from someone that changed their name, like the trans community. The trans community will not be able to vote because all of that has changed. So then like I said, it's now another poll tax. You had to pay in order to vote before, and now think how expensive that's going to be. In certain locations, they can make that $135, $140. That is someone's grocery bill for 1 to 2 weeks. If they have to choose between buying groceries or voting, they are going to choose groceries.
Absolutely. 1000%. I like this comment that Bruce says here, because this is exactly what I believe as well. He says that politicians are so bad that instead of getting more votes for them, they're trying to prevent people from voting against them. Ding, 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 ding. That is exactly why this is there. Trump knows he's losing. He's going to lose. If everyone is empowered to be able to go to the polls, he knows that they're going to vote him out, and he's going to be impeached. He said it himself. I didn't make this up. He said it himself. If you guys don't make taking control of these elections, then they're going to vote me out. They're going to impeach me. He said it. So I don't think that this is about Trump having this integrity spike. And now he's like, no, we got to protect the elections. He doesn't care about that. Okay. He doesn't care about that. And I'm going to show you guys why. What do you have to say about what Bruce is just saying here?
I mean, he's absolutely right. Trump has a 37% approval rating right now. All the polls show that even in red states, that the Republican candidates are looking very, very bad. You either have a lot of MAGA supporters who will choose to stay home and not vote at all, or you have them switching sides because they're that pissed about the economy, particularly. The number one issue is affordability. And right now, people can't afford groceries. People can't afford their health care. That's their biggest worry on the Republican side. That is still their biggest worry. This is one of the first times in Trump's campaign, or presidency, I should say, even from his first term, where he is underwater on almost everything that he stood for, including affordability. I think the poll numbers were 60% of Republicans think the country is headed in the wrong direction when it comes to the economy. They don't actually like the tariffs anymore. They don't believe the lies that gas is always cheaper. They know that eggs are cheaper because they don't actually know why, but they know that eggs are cheaper, but food is not cheap. And as much as Republicans and Trump wants to say that food is cheaper, they know they're going shopping every week. They know it's not cheap. And where I live here in South Florida, prices aren't even just 20% high. They are literally 50% higher than they were
true.
before.
It's
So,
true.
depending on where you live, it is not just 20% higher. It could be much, much higher. And prices are continuing to rise. They're not actually falling at all. They're getting worse. And one of the basic things is obviously feeding your family. And if you can't do that, people will not continue to vote for you. And even though people will shout and say, I like what Trump is doing, they will not vote for Republican candidates, even if they like Trump.
And here's another, that's right, even if they like Trump. Here's another situation about birth certificates. There are people that will need that birth certificate to complete their registration. And that's not so easy to get. And what this person here is saying is that if you're indigenous, you can't find your birth certificate easily. So true. So what do we do? What do we do for the people? Like, you can get a passport, you could get a birth certificate. What are the other things? Guys, school ID, if this thing passes, you won't be able to use that.
Nope.
School ID is not going to be able to. And then with mail-in ballots, they made it where, and correct me if I'm wrong, they made it where you can send it, but it's not complete until you go in person. Is that how it is?
You actually have to go in person ahead of time to say why you need a mail-in ballot, right?
Oh, wow.
So you basically have to go over there and say, I need a mail-in ballot because I won't be there. And say if you are, somewhere else, like you're overseas or something, they have another stipulation. Essentially, what they're trying to do is give a reason why you need a mail-in ballot and prove why you need a mail-in ballot. And before, like the COVID times and right after COVID, you didn't need a reason. You were able to use your mail-in ballot. Now, listen, people have to understand you were already required to prove all of this stuff when you got your ID in the first place and registered to vote. You don't need to prove it again and again and again and again. There's this thing that people, especially people that approve of this type of legislation, is that we have a massive problem of non-citizens voting. And like I said, that's been disproven. But this is what this administration has tried to do. Even this, you can even draw a straight line between what's going on with ICE right now and the voting rights that they're trying to do. Because what they're trying to say is that, look at all the enemies. What they're calling the enemies are immigrants, people that are Black and brown specifically. And they're trying to say, these are the people that are taking away your jobs, that are making food more expensive, that are making your housing more expensive. The reason why you are suffering is because these people, and Democrats are protecting them because they want them to vote. That's their pitch. And a lot of people believe it because that's what they're force fed on Fox News and Newsmax and Benny Johnson and Matt Walsh and all of these people that continue to spread these lies. If you listen to this 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, I'm exaggerating a little on how much people listen to them, but if this is all you consume, eventually you will buy into it and
Yes.
think that these people are the enemy. They are stealing votes. It makes perfect sense. Why can't people prove who they want to vote for? If you want to buy alcohol, you need to prove it. Why don't they have to prove it for voting? And they draw that correlation, even though there is no correlation. Right? There is no correlation to that. There is no constitutional right in order to buy alcohol. There's a constitutional right for you to vote.
Yeah. Guys, listen, great conversation, but I really want you guys to watch this, because this is going to help you understand, well, wait a minute. Has anyone ever done this before? Has anyone ever talked about this? Like, where did Trump get this? We know he didn't come up with it by himself. Like, where does this whole idea come from? I'm going to show you guys. I want you to pay attention to this video right here, and it's going to make a little more sense to you.
A victory
is one that exists for one reason and one reason only. And that is to make it hard for American citizens to register, make it hard for them to vote, and make it hard for them to have their voices heard.
A judge permanently blocking a Kansas law requiring voters to prove their citizenship with driver's license, passport, social security cards, and more before they could register to vote.
Better policy, better government comes out of it when more citizens are participating rather than less.
At the March trial, the Secretary of State represented himself, arguing the law kept non-citizens from voting.
It's a problem, and Kansas has addressed that problem, but the ACLU doesn't like it, and that's why they're fighting tooth and nail to stop the Kansas law.
But in this decision, the judge found the law disproportionately impacts qualified registration applicants. Kobach is appealing the decision, but as of now, Kansans will no longer be required to show proof of citizenship, and the ACLU hopes that will draw more people to the polls.
There is no question that the law that was struck down today is one that has discouraged citizens from registering and from participating.
Wow. So I told you guys at the beginning and when I went live before the show that we're going to show you where it is. This guy, Chris Kobach, is known as the architect of this movement. That's Trump's buddy. He got this from him. And guess what happened? When this is back in 2011, V, that they tried this. Identical to what they're doing now. They called it safe. They called it the SAFE Act back then. And so what he did is he taught it to Trump. You know, he was on Trump's committee to make elections more integral, make it more with integrity. He was on that committee with Trump. He failed at it. Now, for many years, people there in Kansas had to live by this law. 35,000 people. They took ACLU, finally sued them and said, okay, look, enough is enough. You guys have had this law in the books far too long. At least 35,000 people have now not been able to vote because of this law. You don't have any proof of it. You've only presented 30 to 39 people that were non-citizens trying to vote. Not enough to make this a thing. So he failed. So now Trump is trying to make it national. So all what is happening now is just a transfer of what they failed at before. What do you think about this story?
I mean, I think that we have seen them try to do this for decades, and you just proved it in that short story. And honestly, they are trying to do this because they know that it's not just now that Trump is being viewed bad or the Republicans are viewed bad. They have been viewed bad for quite some time. And the honest truth is that if every single Democratic person actually voted, Trump wouldn't have been in office in 2016. He wouldn't have been in office in 2024. And all they're trying to do is continue that suppression. Now, a lot of people have already feel, even without these laws, people feel disenfranchised because of the way even our Constitution is set up, right? If you look at the Electoral College basically it says that you don't necessarily vote for someone directly. You vote for electors to vote for a presidential candidate. And all but 2 states have a winner take all system. And that already makes people feel like they're disenfranchised, because if you live in the red, if you're a blue dot in a red state and it's very, very red, you might feel like your vote doesn't count because of how red that state is, and vice versa. And so that's already in the back of people's mind. Now you're adding on top of that. And so that now reduces the voting population even more. And so they know this. They know that the way to win elections is not to try to prove that they are the better candidate. They know that they just need to suppress the votes. If they suppress enough votes, they can stay in power forever.
Yes, yes.
And that is what they're trying to do.
Another comment: the U.S. Post Office will now no longer confirm the date stamp is accurate to allow them to discard ballots. Wow, that's interesting.
So what they're doing, so what happened before is that, say if you were completing a mail-in ballot and you dropped it into your, that blue box. Now, what would happen is that when they come and pick it up, they're supposed to come pick it up every day, but that doesn't happen all the time because of, little resource issues, but they know when the last time they picked it up. So say if when they come in the next day and they pick it up, they would date that as the previous day as legally required, because that is actually when you dropped it off. That means that when it gets picked up at the center to look at how many people use mail-in ballots and voted, those would get counted against the total, so your vote counted. Now there will be no date posted. So what matters is when the ballots get picked up, not when the date is posted anymore. And that will affect, who knows, it could be tens of thousands, it could be hundreds of thousands, because again, we don't know what other laws they will pass on making it accessible. They could change the laws on other things that will affect this voting law. So right now, the United States Postal Service around the country right now is actually having problems. In fact, in my neighborhood right here, we are seeing issues of delayed packages. I've had to call the post office because I had medicine shipped. It's like, I have medicine shipped. I don't know what's going on. I mean, important packages. And because they don't have the resources that they used to have. They're delayed. They've cut down the amount of workers that they have. And so this stamp process was a security hole that the security that even if your envelope was not picked up on the day that you dropped it off, then it would still count. And now it won't. And if they pass other rules and regulations and laws that could stop them from picking it up, all those people who voted via mail-in ballots, those votes may not count. And we're seeing other comments here. There's not just this one issue with the SAVE Act. It's huge. Don't get me wrong. It is a major thing, but it's everything else surrounding it. Now, the SAVE Act requires you to, say, get a passport. But do you know that they shut down 1,400 libraries that used to be able to provide assistance to helping you get a passport? They used to take the pictures and help you file your paperwork to actually go get your passport. The federal government took that away from 1,400 libraries just this year. So they are doing everything possible on top of the SAVE Act to limit your ability to vote.
Think it's a game, guys. Listen, that's why I want people to stop watching social media and how you're having these Republicans telling you, what's wrong with the Dems? It's just vote. It's just ID. What do you want to cheat? You don't want people. You want non-citizens. Yet they're not giving you any numbers. How many people they've caught that were non-citizens? Right now, there is a law against voting in an election if you are not a citizen. Now, what I did find out too, V, is that in some states, they allow non-citizens to vote when it's local.
Yeah, right? Because we're talking about it's illegal to vote in federal elections. It does not mean that it is illegal to vote in local elections for school board, for example. Yeah. If you're a non-citizen, there is nothing in the law that makes it illegal for you to vote for the school board or whatever it is. So
Yeah.
that has nothing to do with this. But Republicans will use those
Yes.
things to talk about voting for the president of the United States. And that's how it gets conflated. And that's when people don't necessarily understand the details and think that we have a big problem, even though we don't.
That's right. That's why I wanted to bring that up, because you'll have people say, I know they're non citizens. Duh. Yes, there are non citizens that vote. But when it comes to voting for the president, I think that what's happening here, let's just call a spade a spade. His ego is bruised. When he went into to Atlanta, when you saw that, what was the first thing that came to your mind when you saw that? Oh my God, they raided and just went in there and took these ballots. Like, what are they doing with them? What they want to do with it? Someone that has that question, what would you tell them? What do they want with those ballots? Votes?
It's twofold. The first thing is intimidation. They want other states and other counties to realize that they have that power, and if they don't do what they ask, the same thing's going to happen to them, and they will. And that's the first thing, intimidation. But then
Yeah,
the other thing is obviously they want to control the voter. The voter. All the rolls, all the
yeah,
voter rolls. They want to be able to decide who is allowed to vote and who doesn't vote. Trump has said it publicly that he wants to make it nationally. That is not how the Constitution is written. It is illegal for the federal government to take over the elections. The reason why the Constitution is set up so it's all locally based is so that a supposed king can't ever be a dictator and decide, I won the vote, I decide my vote, because it's locally based. The whole point is that enough people in every state would vote differently that it would disallow someone who is even trying to attempt to become a dictator. The whole point of the Constitution is to prevent dictatorship. That is why it was written. That is why we fought the American Revolution. The entire thing was based so we would make sure that we had proper representation for us and we wouldn't have one man or one entity deciding all the rules. And what Donald Trump is trying to do is take those safeguards away so he can be the ultimate ruler,
that's
the
right.
king.
That's
That's
right.
why that's why you're seeing No King's protests. That's why people are calling him a dictator. That's why people are calling him a fascist. Because it's not because we're trying to just say, oh, we're Democrats or whatever, and we're angry. And it's not just Democrats. Where I live, 60% of this county voted for Donald Trump. When I go out there on protest, there are thousands of people who are independents, even people who voted for Trump, who are out there protesting against what's happening right now. And I've been to at least 5 protests in this county. And it's a heavily Republican county, and people are pissed. And it's not just based on just being a Democrat. So I understand that is the message that you're seeing on Fox News
Yeah.
and Newsmax and all these right-wing organizations, but that's not the truth. And you're living in a bubble. And I can see even people here in the comments are trying to say, I don't want to believe the truth. I want to believe what I'm being told. And the reason why this guy is saying, for example, there's lots of places to get passports. It's easy. What the point isn't that whether it's easy or hard. The point is they're making it harder.
Yes.
Why would you take for the locations 1,400 locations away? There's no legal reason to do that other than you want to make it harder to get a passport. The goal is to make it hard enough where people finally say, I give up. That is the goal here.
There we go. Yeah, that is the goal. I'm gonna share with you some of the guys to go back to this Kobach thing. Let me tell you what eventually happened. Now they tried to appeal the judge ruling because the judge is like, get out of here with that. We're not doing this voter thing the way you want this election. We're not doing it that way because it's unconstitutional. The district judge ruled it unconstitutional, but we tell you they appealed it and then it was denied. They were like, no, we're not. We're not even listening to you on this. They wouldn't even listen to it. But let me tell you, this is very ironic. I'm gonna tell you what they did recently. Y'all ready for this? He went to the Supreme Court in Kansas to overturn a ruling that declared voting a fundamental right. He's arguing that the state should have more power to regulate this process. They don't want this to be a federal thing. They want it to be a state thing. So guess what? All states can finally say, no, you don't get to vote. So all these people died. That's why I showed you this video at the beginning. These people died. They fought. And it wasn't just Black kids out there fighting in Freedom Summer. There were white kids that lost their lives as well, fighting this same fight that we're fighting today. So what do you think about that? That they're trying to now make it not be a fundamental right to vote.
That is always what tyranny does, right? Tyrannical dictators don't want the vast majority of public to vote. They want only the people that support them to vote. This is, and again, I understand people don't like the comparisons of Donald Trump with other dictators, but you can't deny what he's doing is very similar to what he complained what Venezuela did. I mean, you can't. It's the same thing what Putin did. You have the appearance of an election, but you control how it's conducted. You control
right.
who can vote, and so you control who is allowed to vote. The voter rolls. Then you control the actual numbers. I think people remember what happened in Georgia when we have a literal audio clip of Trump saying that they need to find him votes, right? So what he was trying to do was manipulate the votes so he could be elected, even though he lost the election. Now, he was going to be prosecuted until he was voted in, and the Supreme Court gave him absolute immunity. And then unfortunately, there's this DOJ. It's not even a law; it's a DOJ procedure that a sitting president can't be prosecuted. Now that's garbage. That's another story. That's another show in itself. But the point is that Trump has already proven from the past that you cannot trust him when it comes to voting rights and voting regulations. He does not care about keeping free and fair elections. In fact, let's take it to the next level. On top of the SAVE Act, the administration said they are going to put ICE at voting polls. They are going to put the same people right now that have killed 2 Americans on video, right? Citizens, the same organization that has detained 1,500 U.S. citizens around the country. Could be detained for hours, could be detained for 3 days. 1,500 U.S. citizens have been detained by ICE. And as many as 34,000 green card holders have been questioned and interrogated. Legal residents, these are green card holders, by ICE. The same organization that is determined to literally be compared to 1930s Germany is going to now be at the polls to intimidate people. Why? Because it doesn't matter if you're legal. If you're brown, you are going to be targeted just like you are right now. ICE agents are going up to people and asking, what country were you born in? Your accent doesn't sound like mine. And for people that deny this, we have video evidence of this. And so if you look brown and you have an accent and you think that you could be separated from your family and you're a legal resident or citizen, will you go out there and risk your life to go out and vote? And it's all about suppression. The SAVE Act, the ability not to be able to get your passport at these libraries, ICE agents, all this, it's suppression, suppression, suppression. Stop people from voting, and Trump will automatically get his people, the Republicans, in office. And if they do, then you won't be able to impeach him. And all of his agenda will be able to get passed. This is all connected, and it's one whole thing on how to stay in power.
That's all this is about, guys. I don't know how we can stress this even more. Bruce says that once Trump said that they were looking into him for running for a 3rd term, Congress from both parties should have asked. See, he says things and we take it lightly. Oh, that's just Trump. Oh, no. Quite the contrary. This guy said, what was something else that he said that this is one of them. There was another one I was just thinking. I just lost my train of thought on it. But this is one of them where he says that, the 3rd term, he lies and says, they've asked me about being a 3rd term president. Maybe, I know what the other one was, where he said, you vote for me this time and you'll never have to vote again. You think he was kidding? His plan is, this is it right here, because he knows that if he controls the election and control the states, he's already got so many people under his thumb. But if he can nationalize the elections, it won't matter about the Voting Rights Act. None of that will matter. He's trying to gut all of that stuff anyway.
Remember when everyone thought that he was joking about annexing Canada or Denmark?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it's just a joke. He doesn't really mean it. He's just trying to troll Democrats. That was Caroline Leavitt who said that Trump really didn't mean it. And then when he was asked about it, he said, no, I'm serious. On the plane, he was asked about it, and he said, no, I'm serious. I want Denmark. I'm dead serious. And then he had to come out and actually finally said, I won't do anything militarily, but I'll remember it. So he basically threatened them without starting a war, but he did threaten them and said he wanted Denmark, but people said it was a joke. They said it was a joke about Canada. Then he also talked about Venezuela even last term, and people said he's joking. He would never ever invade a country that doesn't threaten us. He invaded Venezuela. And now, when people said he was joking when he said he was going to control the oil, right now it's not even talked about because he does so many crazy things every day.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
the $500,000, the first batch of 500,000, sorry, 500 million, not 500,000. The first batch of $500 million in sales goes in a third party account that's not in the United States, so it can't be looked at by the oversight committee. It is now in an account that is controlled by Donald Trump and Marco Rubio. The United States has no oversight over the money that gets oil from Venezuela. That is supposed to not. Do we understand how crazy that is? That the President of the United States and the Secretary of State control the bank account of a country's oil. What is going on here?
And nobody's even, so no one else control. I mean, like, help me understand. First of all, why do we have this account for the viewers? Why explain that?
So when we invaded Venezuela, what Trump said is that Venezuela's oil, he said, actually was owned by the United States. And this is because his belief is that when Chavez controlled the country, he nationalized the oil fields. And at that time, you had companies like Chevron and ConocoPhillips invest in Venezuela and drill oil. And what Chavez said, he wanted 60% of those oil fields. And so when he nationalized it, most of the companies left, Chevron stayed. And so Trump believes that this means that Venezuela oil is actually American oil because Chavez nationalized those oil fields. In reality, it's their oil. It always been the oil. We were invited to drill the oil, but they could send us home at any given time. And Trump uses that in order to say that their oil is actually our oil, and that's why they control it. And the reason why it's done in another country is because they don't want the House Oversight Committee and other oversight groups to be able to look at the financials and see where the money is flowing. And just, I mean, in any other time in history, that would have been the biggest headline on the newspaper, and yet all Trump's supposed, who cares? I mean, this is what the world we're living in.
Why hasn't Congress? This is a big deal. This is a very big deal because it's a conflict of interest. First of all, why isn't Congress bringing this to the table?
Because first of all, they can't talk really. They have no oversight of the money that's being used overseas. So all they can do is simply, first of all, the Republicans control the Congress, right? So they are the one that is going to hold the hearing. That you have to have Jim Jordan actually go up and say, let's start a hearing about why Venezuelan oil is held in a third country. That's not going to happen because he's supporter of the president. But secondly, the reason why it's again held outside is because there can be no congressional oversight. How can you look at the financials? Even if they brought it up, they can say it's outside this country. You have no jurisdiction. That's it. Done. Over. So
so messed up.
And the reason why
there has to be something in the Constitution that prevents this. Like, it just blows my mind that we have so much that's just happening, and it seems like we don't have any way to stop it. How?
The way the Constitution would have prevented this is that you would have either Congress or a federal court that would have ruled against Donald Trump. But the problem is that Donald Trump, and it didn't just start this year. In his first term, he started gutting out federal judges that would not vote his way. He replaced them all. He fired them. You know, people like to give them calls Black Sunday, Black Friday, whatever. But the bottom line is that he fired mass amount of judges, instilled ones that are loyal to him. And then over the course, remember his last presidency, he had 3 Supreme Court justices. 3 of them, right? Yeah. And so now he controls the Supreme Court and most of the federal courts. So where's the opposition? You have Democrats in Congress, but they have no power because the only power they have is the power of the filibuster in the Senate. Other than that, they because they don't have power in either the House or the Senate, they don't lead any of the committees. They can't do anything. So they have no power. So the courts are controlled by Republicans, the Supreme Court, the federal courts, the Senate, the House, the White House, and then you have the DOJ that would have investigated him, who also is a Trump loyalist. You have the Secretary of State that would also defy this, but is also a Trump loyalist. Everyone right now supports Trump. And that's why I keep making the correlation of saying that Donald Trump is a fascist dictator. This is not something that I'm saying, be careful, we're headed there. We're there. We're already
We're
there.
there.
People just don't want to admit it.
Yeah, we're there. Rashawn says they're also shipping oil to Israel for the first time in years.
That's correct. That is
That is
100% correct. Yes.
So how did that come about?
So
I
for a
didn't
long
even know that one.
So for a long time, Venezuela was actually not able to ship oil to a lot of places. So first of all, they didn't want to ship it to Israel, but where they did ship it to was mostly China and Russia, and so now you have U.S. led leadership saying, Israel wants oil, we'll give them oil now. So I mean, it's just another way where you can look at the relationships between the United States and with their allies. At this point, who are the allies of the United States? There used to be Canada, Australia, Mexico, Denmark. We used to have Europe.
Yeah.
We used to have all of these allies. At this point, our only ally is Israel. And it's the only ally that they're working with. Everyone else is considered an enemy. You know, I mean, Rubio is over there in the EU right now saying that we don't want dependents. We want to have people that can fight for themselves, making light of what our soft power was in NATO. I mean, not just soft power, actually, but both. I mean, the world has changed under Trump, and I hate to sound like an alarmist, but it's true. And the problem about sounding like an alarmist is people stop believing you because they don't think it's possible.
Exactly.
It's possible and it's happening right now, and that's the problem.
Because what we have before us is you hear the Democrats and they're talking about what Trump can't do. He's breaking the Constitution. He's doing this. Okay, so when you see him doing it, that should alarm you right there. Well, wait a minute. If this is against the Constitution, I mean, it's against the Constitution for the federal government to run elections, but he's trying to do it. And then this is what they're pitching. 83% of Americans want this. Oh, miss me with that. They don't really understand. And why would you poll people on something that's against the Constitution? Like, that doesn't make sense to me, V. Please help me understand.
So here's the thing. It is illegal what Trump did.
Yeah.
That is the problem. It is illegal what Trump did. But the whole thing is that the president didn't simply send a letter. The Department of Justice fired them. But who told the Department of Justice to fire those judges? Donald Trump. I mean, this isn't a hard line to draw between Trump and the Department of Justice. It's like saying that the Department of Justice is not doing things on behalf of Donald Trump. So you're right that the commentator's right that Trump himself doesn't have the authority to do it, but the Department of Justice does, and that's what happened. And
Exactly.
and we've seen the Department of Justice go up there, talk about the Epstein files, and rave about the Dow. It's up to
Lord have
50,000.
mercy. I know tonight we're talking about the SAVE Act, but you're a political guru, so I got to ask you, what did you think of this show, this clown show that Bondi, when she was sitting in Congress, when they were questioning her? What did you think about that?
It was one of the grossest things I've ever seen in my life. One of the worst moments was that she couldn't even look at the victims. She didn't even turn around and pay them any respect. These are people that were abused when some of them at the age of 7. Okay. And she didn't even have the grace to turn around and say, I'm sorry, I will interview. Now, think about this. One of the most basic things you can do in any sexual abuse case is at least interview the victims. They didn't even do that. What does that tell you? That they're not trying to find justice for the victims. They don't care about the victims. The only reason they even release this information is to quote unquote flood the zone, which is a Steve Bannon thing that he came up with back in 2014, when people had wanted information. Steve Bannon is the one who came with the concept of flood the zone. And this is not something new. This is what attorneys have been doing from the beginning of time. When you ask for discovery, instead of giving you just the information you ask for, they'll give you a million documents and hope that you can't find the one that you actually want.
Exactly.
And that's what they're doing here.
Yeah.
Flooding the zone. Because when you look at the Epstein files, there's a lot of nonsense there. There's also a lot of real information. And so what they're hoping is that people will see all the nonsense and think that all of it is nonsense. And that's why they released it in the way that they did. If they actually cared about justice, they would have actually prosecuted. I can't say some of the things here because I don't want to get you censored, but they found for example, a photograph. What we have is there was a photograph where it was part of a lawsuit, and it was a civil lawsuit because the criminal justice failed these victims. So in the civil suit, there were pictures of uh, an underage female being abused by several men. And I cannot tell you the details because, again, it's disgusting and it also would get you censored. But the point is that they have photographic images of an actual abuse happening with pictures of the men that abused them, and they are doing nothing about it. So they do not care about justice. You have to come up with a different name for the Department of Justice right at this point. And so when Pam Bondi did what she did there, you guys should apologize to Trump. The Dow is at 50. I mean, even MAGA was upset about it. If you look at Twitter and stuff, even MAGA, because if you remember this now we know is true, the conspiracy theory that there was a cabal of billionaires, of people that were abusing children, that was considered a conspiracy theory by QAnon. And no one believed them. I didn't believe them. Why would I? That's insane. Why would anyone believe that this actually happened? And now we have evidence that it happened. And a large part of those people, those QAnon people, became MAGA. And now they're mad that there's no justice for the victims. They're mad. And even though they won't come out and say that they are not supporting Trump, they're not going to vote in this election. They're going to stay at home. That's one of the positive things that are going to come out of this, is that at least we'll have some of a chance, because those people that are really mad at Trump will not vote for Republicans that support him.
I want to take some of the comments here. Rashawn says, this was all mapped out in Project 2025. So true. Listen, I had a friend that was kind of breaking down Project 2025 to me. And I said, there's no way they're going to be able to do all this stuff. Come on, I miss me with that. That's just for that. Oh my goodness. Okay. They gave us the playbook, but they successfully fooled the American people into thinking it couldn't possibly be true. And that's why we're having this show tonight, because we're trying to keep you guys from being fooled into thinking that this election reformation that he's trying to do is going to work. He has an agenda. How many times do we have to be fooled by this man? Like, he lied to get voted. He did. He lied to a lot of y'all. He didn't lie to me because I already knew he was lying. But some people fell for it. He talked about, and you and I talked about this before the show, that he knew how to, he's a very good communicator when it comes to lying. Now, when he has to tell the truth, he's bad at that. But when he has to lie, he's excellent. He's a very good strategist in mapping out how people will think. And it has worked for him so far. But we have to stop. That's why it's so important. Research, guys. Find out for yourself. I want to be a part of the solution, not part of the problem. So I wanted to bring this to you tonight so that you guys can be like, okay, well, let's think of this differently. Did this really happen with Kobach? Yeah, go look it up. It happened in Kansas. Is it really something that they've done before? Look it up. This is why we do these shows, so you can know that this stuff is not made up. Let me get some more of your comments here. Is that Cash Patel's cousin? Really? That's not
I
nice.
get it all the time.
Marilyn Monroe was in the Epstein files. Was she? I didn't know that. That's V, and we love him in Connecticut. Yay! A federal judge can only be removed by impeachment. The House brings the charges, and the Senate holds the trial, requiring a 2/3 vote to remove.
Yeah, you're thinking of the different type of district courts and stuff. There are all types of judges that can get fired and have been fired by the Department of Justice. And so you're right on the different levels of district judges, but not on the lower levels. And the Department of Justice got rid of them. And a lot of the other situation is a lot of them not just got fired, but resigned because of what was going on in the administration as well. You don't have to believe me. You don't have just look at how many judges were removed under Trump's first term. Don't even look at this term. Look at the first term and go look at that, and then you can find out the real information.
Oh yeah. Now this is kind of interesting. Jimmy says between Epstein and the Catholic Church. Wow, does that make you feel some kind of way to compare this guy to the church and there be some similarities? Like, isn't that sad to you?
It's disgusting. I don't know if I mean, listen. The similarities are that yes, there's a lot of abuse in the Catholic Church, and that's disgusting. But I think that's where the similarities end. One of the things that people have to understand about Epstein is that he didn't just abuse children; he used them as property and used them as ways to get money, essentially. Not just by trafficking them, but by making sure that he actually had the information of who was using them and said, listen, I know what you did. Tell me this information. And he essentially was able to use this type of blackmail in order to be powerful. I mean, there was a lot of people that he had dirt on. And even if he didn't come out and say it, they know he had it. Yeah. And so, he didn't have to always come and say, I am threatening you. He had to simply say, hey, we hung out last weekend. I'm wondering if you can help me out with this. And that's all they have to, that's all that he has to say. Absolutely. And that's why people helped him.
Yep. And it's sick. I like what Bruce says. He says, more and more I'm believing Trump is a puppet with people around him pushing their ideologies. Of course. I proved one tonight. This guy couldn't make it work in Kansas. So he's using Trump. Hey, Trump, I got an idea for you, buddy. I bet you if you really want to take over elections, let's do what I tried and let's make it national. I couldn't get it done in the state because, it's unconstitutional and everything. But I don't know. You break the law all the time. Why don't you try it? That's it in a nutshell. And that's as easy as me, someone without a political background, can say it. This is something, it is not about integrity. He does not have that. He doesn't have integrity in the dirt under his nails. He doesn't have it. That doesn't exist with this man. He always has an agenda. Always has an agenda.
His agenda, for the most part, has been to enrich himself. And Bruce is right when he says that Project 2025 is simply people pushing him around. And essentially, that has been the case. What people don't understand is that Project 2025 was written by the Heritage Foundation, and the Heritage Foundation was started around 1970. In fact, I did a video on this a while back to show how the leader of the Coors beer brand actually funded the Heritage Foundation. It goes back that far, and he actually wrote the $250,000 check that actually went to the first makings of the Heritage Foundation. Ronald Reagan was the first president that actually had the Heritage Foundation in the Oval Office telling him what to do. And if you want to know what they told him to do, it was decrease welfare, remove education as a federal standard, cut all benefits or social benefits, push personal responsibility. And that's what Reagan did. If you look at what Reagan did, he dramatically reduced welfare benefits. He decreased Pell Grants and all these federal programs in order to get education out to as many people as possible. He took away school lunches. Over 1 million school lunches were thrown away. He pushed personal responsibility, and the whole thing of Reaganomics is built around the Heritage Foundation. The difference back then is that even though the Heritage Foundation members were in the Oval Office, they weren't so public about it. They published a book called something different every year. Project 2025, the book is not new. They've been doing this since they were created. The difference is that the president and the Heritage Foundation didn't seem so aligned before. Even though they did speak at speeches, even though they were in the Oval Office, it was not something considered where they were like peas and carrots before. Now, the people from the Heritage Foundation are literally part of the administration. Right? When you look at the Office of Managing Budget, that's an ex-Heritage Foundation guy. In fact, there's over 8 people that used to work for the Heritage Foundation that are now part of the Trump administration. That's never happened before.
Wow. So are you guys seeing now what's going on? We talked about the attorney. He's now an attorney general in Kansas, how he was in Trump's ear. He's the one that put that in his ear about this voter strategy, election strategy. Now, V is telling us about how Reagan had the Heritage Foundation in his office, and all that stuff is very similar to what Trump is doing as well. So he brings these people around him with an agenda as well. Well, guys, guess who we have coming to the show with us now? It's Brett.
Hey, Brett.
Hello there.
How y'all doing?
Good.
I'm so glad that you were able to make it. I want you to tell everybody who you are, and then we're going to address this question or comment that Joseph has. Let me move this out of the way.
I am Brett Thompson, staffing expert and lover of Black culture and pushing Black people forward. and I'm here. I mean, I don't have an agenda. I just have. I believe in the truth and conveying the truth. And there's a little bit of truth in just about every side, at least. And but that truth isn't always pretty. So
no, it's not. We want to get into some of that, what you're talking about, because I know it's juicy.
I've been listening. Pretty much the whole first hour. And VT been cooking. He's been cooking. Yeah.
Man, listen, he knows this is not his last time coming to
absolutely. He's been cooking, like, and he's been laying it down pretty straight about voter suppression and the Heritage Foundation and their plans. But it all stems. I mean, if I can add just a little flavor to it,
please.
It all stems from if you ever know a lady named Jane Elliott, she references a book called The Birth Dearth, and it's and another thing is Black people, especially from the late 80s and early 90s, they remember Public Enemy had an album called Fear of a Black Planet. You know, that was the fear of of white parents having white daughters that would procreate with Black men, and they were trying to end that. And the reason for that is because whites don't want to be the minority in this country, and it's heading that way. There's that train's not stopping. That's what this whole thing about immigration is and everything. It's like Obama deported way more people than Trump has. In the right way, he deported criminals for the most part.
Right.
They might not have been convicted yet, but they were on their way to be convicted. And he went ahead and deported them. So, but Trump isn't doing that. Trump is doing this. ICE is they're doing things like a person would come in illegally, get a work visa. And then, and say that work visa was like for 3 years, okay? And on that second year, it's time to renew. They schedule their hearings to make sure that their nose is clean. They're doing everything. They're working. They're contributing to society. And what they're doing is ICE is intercepting them before their hearings.
Yeah.
And that's not what Trump promised. He said he's going to go get the criminals, and he's doing less than 20% of the people that he's deporting or have criminal records.
14%.
It's pretty simple. So it's because it was never about getting criminals out this country. It's about getting immigrants out this country. Mm-hmm. That's what it's all about.
I'm so glad you said that. Now you just paralleled something for me.
Bro. Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, I mean, you could say I'm champion for the illegal aliens, illegal immigrants, or whatever. I mean, I'm not telling. I'm not even taking a side. I'm just telling you what's real, what's going on. You know, it's not. It's not about this. You know, and they're running their campaign on this boogeyman, and the next big part of it is this. The reason why they're doing this is, man, a lot of these hardcore conservatives, you might say they're not smart or they're not this, but they're definitely devious, and they can count. And you know what I'm saying? And they know math, and they know they don't have the numbers when it comes to voting. So they have to suppress the majority's vote to even have a chance in an election. Let me tell you something. If every American voted that was legal here, Republicans wouldn't win any national election. They wouldn't even win any state elections. They might win a few state elections, but they would only win certain local rural elections. Yeah, that's it. The electoral college is so antiquated. You know, it was created for one thing, and now it's built itself into something else. You know, and I understand why they didn't want the people of Philadelphia, deciding the presidential race. That's why they created the electoral college, and that was reasonable. That was good back then. Just like a musket was good to protect your home back then. But you know what? People don't protect their home with muskets anymore. Don't do that. You know what I'm saying? So the electoral college, if they threw that in the trash, no Republican president would win. I mean, I think that they've won 2 popular votes in the last 25 years. Yeah. Trump won this one with Kamala Harris, and the last one, Bush beat Kerry with the popular vote. Every election since then, it's always the popular vote has gone to the Democrats,
which is a clear indicator that people don't want them.
Most people in this country are liberal. They're liberal socially. They're definitely liberal socially. And I mean, do people have conservative? But most people aren't one thing, you know, or one-sided. Most people have liberal views about things. Most people, and some people have conservative views about things. You know, I mean, I don't think you could be a real sane person if you had all liberal views or. There has to
be a balance.
It got to be a balance. So that's really and that's really what's going on. I mean, when it comes to the Republicans are desperately trying to hold on to numbers so they can control and make things happen. You know, and they've done things sneakily and manipulatively. They manipulated the Supreme Court. You know what I'm saying? Obama had Supreme Court judges lined up, ready to go. He had 196 judges ready to go, but Mitch McConnell, who was the head of the Senate Judiciary Committee, refused to submit them and put them to a vote. So and as soon as Trump got in office, he flooded all those judges in, and they were all conservative judges.
He said he was going to do it.
Yeah, he said he did. I mean, he also said that his job was to oppose everything that Barack Obama did,
and he did that too.
And he did that too. I mean, it's the Democrats, man, they're gonna have to grow some. I mean, this nice guy act, looking good while doing your thing. That's only gonna last for so long. Let me tell you something, man. I mean, you're gonna have to get down and dirty. You have to get them. You're gonna have to get in the mud because they're playing in the mud.
I have this comment up because this is one of those Republican talking points that I hear, and I'm like, listen, that comment ever comes up on my show, I have to address it, and I've been holding on to it for about 10 minutes now. Where were all of you during the Biden administration when they refused to release Epstein files? I hear crickets. Now the files have been released. All you do now is complain.
Can I answer this? It's a little long, but let me explain what happened. Okay. So back during the Biden eras or even Obama era, the information that we knew about Epstein was very different from what we know today. What we thought was happening was that it was limited to Palm Beach County. And what we knew back then was that Epstein was paying teenagers to come over to his house to give him a massage. And then he would then molest them. And then he would pay those same teenagers to then recruit others that he could molest. That is what we knew at the time. We thought that it was a maximum of about 200 girls that he did this to. And then Alex Acosta said, listen, let's have you plead to just one count of solicitation of a minor. We're not going to get you for rape. We're not going to get you for pedophilia or anything like that. We're just going to get you for solicitation. You're going to do 18 months. So for most people, we thought that he got a sweetheart deal, but no one knew the extent of what he did. And again, a lot of people, because what we thought was that he paid these underage girls, a lot of people put a lot of blame on the victims themselves because they were paid, right? So I'm not saying that's right. I'm simply stating a fact. Right. And so that is what people knew in the Obama and Biden years. So that's why there weren't a lot of people fighting to say, release the files, release the files, release the files, because we thought we knew everything there is to know. The guy that was responsible for it was then researched again, and then he died. So we're like, okay, the guy's dead. So there isn't any reason for us to actually look at these files again. But then what happened? You had Kash Patel, Don Bongino, and Donald Trump himself talk about the Epstein files and say this because a lot of their base were QAnon people and said there is a cabal of billionaires and really, really rich people that are taking advantage of children, and they're young. They're even younger than teenagers, and it's global, and this is an issue. And then Kash Patel and Don Bongino and Pam Bondi and Donald Trump said, you're right. And you know what we'll do if you elect us? We'll release the files. And that's why this is a thing now. That's why it was never a thing under Biden or Obama, because no one believed this. It was QAnon conspiracy theorists that actually proposed this in the first place. No one ever thought that they would be right, but they ended up being right. But the one thing that they did is that they thought it was a partisan thing. If you remember Pizzagate, they thought that Hillary Clinton was drinking the blood of children, and pizza was a symbol for child abuse. And so they took crazy conspiracy theories and made it political, which is why the right-wing media, along with Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, and Don Bongino, took up the mantle because they thought that this was a way that they could reach the hard right-wing voters. That's what happened. Now, Trump comes into office, and then Pam Bondi releases the same shit that was already released all ago. Right? It was already released before. She releases it, and then people are like, they had this whole social media campaign of having influencers sending them binders. This is the same stuff we knew. What happened? Then Pam Bondi goes and on Fox News and says, I have the Epstein list right on my desk and I'm about to release it. 2 weeks later, she says, there is no list. Kash Patel comes on all the shows, Joe Rogan, Fox News, and says, I have found no evidence of sex trafficking. Jeffrey Epstein was taking girls and abusing them themselves, but there's no evidence of anyone else that was really involved. That is from Kash Patel and Pam Bondi that said this. Now we have this bombshell of 3 million files, and we know that there are at least 3 million more. And so when Republicans say, why didn't you say anything before? It's because we did not know this was the case. It was right-wingers that were pushing this from the very beginning. It was Trump and Dan and Kash and Pam that all said that they were going to release it. They are the ones that said this was the issue. And now we find ourselves where people like me who thought these people were crazy. There's no cabal of rich people abusing children around the world are like, okay, if this is true, what else is? Let me see all the rest of the files. And that's where we are today.
Yeah. And also the right wingers didn't know that Donald Trump's name wasn't going to appear in Epstein file 38,000 times, right? So I mean, that's real. I mean, they were ready. They thought that they would have put their lives on Bill Clinton would have been all his name's been all through there.
Yeah.
Hillary Clinton all through there.
Yeah.
Everybody's. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, we that's the difference between I think a lot of hardcore conservatives and hardcore liberals. Liberals will sacrifice their own if they're doing wrong. Conservatives will protect their own when they're doing wrong, and that's not the right thing. Accountability needs to go across the board. It really does.
Agreed, 100%. Listen, Bill, I honestly, my personal belief is Bill Clinton is guilty of some of the same stuff that Epstein was. We have pictures of him getting a massage from someone that looks of age. But if we have pictures of him on the island getting massages, and we know we have flight records of him being on the island a dozen times, or at least on the plane, not necessarily on the island, but on the plane records, I think 27 times he was on the planes. You don't go there after a dude has been convicted of soliciting a minor unless you know you're going to do something with him. I mean, can you? I mean, Brett, you're a man, so Ella, I just need to ask him this one question. All right?
Okay.
If you know another man has abused a child, what relationship would you have with that man?
None anymore. I'm done with him. Once I find out, I'm done with them. And but right wingers will beat down the door. Is that Trump found out about Epstein and he reported him to the police? No, it's not that simple. And also one other thing that we didn't get to, the reason why the Biden administration didn't release the Epstein files is because Ghislaine Maxwell, she was convicted and going through her appeals process. Her last appeal was in like October of 2024. I mean, that was at the very end of the Biden era,
right?
And so it wasn't available to be released until then.
So I want this one's for you, V. He said Texas says, I just looked up how many judges of any sort Trump removed during his first term. Still says 0. Give me an actual judge's name that he fired.
So you're looking at, again, he's looking at Article 3. Those are the district judges. But if you look at all the other judges I'm talking about, all the way from administrative to magistrate to immigration, there are hundreds. I'm on a live show, so I'm not necessarily going to Google it right now, but he can. He can specifically look up all the judges that were let go under the first Trump administration. If he's looking at district judges, as I already explained, district judges are different. I'm talking about all of the hundreds of others.
Blacks don't need to be the majority.
Now, somebody says that blacks don't need to be the majority. Why is that, Omega? What do you think about that, Brett? Would you?
I mean, that's just. I mean, that's more shocking than anything. I mean, do we need to be the majority? Because we don't have the numbers to be the majority. But should we be ignored or stepped on? To be honest, I think we should be ignored. That's what we should be. And listen to me here. Like, because our black people over the history have created towns, have created communities, have created things, have created all different types of communities and survived and thrived. Each one of those towns and communities were wiped out by terrorism, bombings and fires, or gerrymandering, or eminent domain and urban renewal. You know what I'm saying? If they would just leave us alone, let us do our thing, but let us keep our taxes, and leave us alone and let us keep our taxes, and we use our tax money to maintain our communities. Black folks would have thriving towns and utopias all over this country.
What about Americans? They want to leave this country and to support financial. I don't understand your question. I'm sorry. Just to assure you, not all of the white people are afraid of being a minority. Look forward to the change. It can't get worse. Could get better.
Obviously people are afraid, and especially racists are afraid that Hispanics are going to be the majority in 2045. That is the
think so.
reality of the situation.
think so.
The non-white people in America are going to be the majority. Whites or will be the minority. Trump delayed that for a few years. It actually was going to be 2040. It's now going to down. The expectation is 2045. And racists are upset because they're seeing too many black and brown people in the neighborhoods. For a long time in America, you could live somewhere and not see another brown person, another black person in your community. If you made enough money, you knew that on that street, if there was a black person or brown person, or not knew, but you thought if there's a black person or a brown person, he doesn't live here. She doesn't live
That's
here.
right.
Now that's not the case anymore. All right? You've got lots of well-to-do black and brown people living all over this country. And so I don't care how rich you are, you will find them in your gated neighborhoods. And they are fucking scared that their daughters are going to bring home a black man. They're scared that they're going to have a Hispanic boss. They don't want that. They want to have the same homogeneity that they've had for a long period of time. This is no different than the civil rights movement of 1965. The things that were being fought then for equality are the same things. The only difference is that we've made some progress where you're not necessarily beaten for saying something on air right now. But I shit you not, and I'm sorry if I'm not allowed to swear too much on the show, but I'm telling you, the racists are scared that they will no longer be able to treat other black and brown people like second-class citizens the way that it's been possible to do for so long, because they won't be the majority anymore. And when you're not the majority, you can't treat people worse than you anymore. It just doesn't happen. And that's what they're afraid of. And that's why they voted for Donald Trump.
Yeah. I have someone else that's coming. Charlie is joining us. Charlie, welcome to the Ella Johnson Show.
Charlie,
tell everybody who
Good
you are,
evening,
my
good
friend.
evening.
Yes.
Yes.
Glad to be here.
Wonderful. You want to tell everybody who you are?
Well, my name is Charlie McCants. I'm in Mobile, Alabama. I have an ABA basketball team where I give young men the opportunity to live their dreams of playing professional basketball. And in addition to that, I partner with the largest legal service company in the U.S., giving people access to the justice system. So
Nice.
that's basically what I do.
Nice. Welcome again. You've been with us strong this month, and I appreciate you, Charlie. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
I see what Jimmy's saying here, and I agree with him, because this is what I thought as well. He says it's from the way I understand that they couldn't release it because it was under investigation. So for the person that wanted to know, why are you guys complaining about the Epstein? Number one, V explained it, that we didn't have access to it. And here Jimmy is saying that he believes it was under investigation. And besides that, Trump ran on it. So if it was good enough for him to run on it, then do what you said. Do what you said. You said you were going to release it. So release it. But then when they brought it to him, he was like, whoa, wait a minute now. You mean I'm in here? Okay, wait a minute. We need to regroup. He wasn't prepared for that one. And I'm sure Pam wasn't either. So there you go on that. I hope that answers your question, sir, who asked that question earlier. So what do you think about the conversation, Charlie? Have you been watching from home to see what we've been talking about tonight?
No, I just came in and I looked at my watch and said, oh, getting ready to start, but it looked like you guys started quite early.
Oh, yes. Tonight was 7 p.m.
Oh.
Yes. Right. Yeah, exactly. He campaigned. So let's get back to the election, because this is important, guys. We're going to be facing midterms, and now with the SAVE Act, we have a lot of issues. So I'm gonna tell you guys, I'm gonna give you some myths that people are saying, and I want you all to address it, because I want people to. Because you're going to hear it again, because it's all over social media, and the Republicans must have this list because they're all saying it. So that's why I grabbed this particular list. The first myth is they're saying there are millions of non-citizens voting in our federal elections. What's wrong with you, Dems? That's why we need to pass this. What do you guys want to cheat? That's the first myth. I want you to take that one, Brett.
Okay. Republicans always need a boogeyman to motivate their base and motivate voters that are swing voters. So what they're doing is the SAVE Act. Okay, and it's not even that. It's the way they're packaging the Save Act. They're calling it the voter ID law. Like, and they're painting liberals as wanting to come to the polls without an ID, which you can't do that. You can't vote without an ID. It's never been that way. I've been voting for 25 years, so now I've had to show my ID every time, and now of course, the Save Act is getting documents, jumping through hoops, finding your birth certificate that your mama didn't put under have under three mattresses. You know what I'm saying? That's all
Right.
along with your cousins and your uncles and your grandparents, and you got to go through all that. And you got to find it, and then you got to be able to prove your citizenship, which is basically now. This is what this is. What they're doing to Save Act is basically reenacting a poll tax. You know what I'm saying? So the poll tax, for people that don't know, is when you put a monetary value on giving people, by a monetary value for registering people to do what their constitutionally rights to do. So which is back in the day, it was a certain fee. And that fee was high for this time, and people that lived in poverty, they couldn't afford it.
Right.
It's almost like imposing a flat tax rate. A flat tax rate would hurt the lower class a lot more than it would hurt the upper class. You see what I'm saying? So basically, a poll tax is the same thing. Do a lot of people have passports? Yeah, they do. But a lot of people don't. Mm-hmm. A lot of people don't. And here's a news flash. A lot of these poor trailer park Trump supporters, they're not going to be able to get it.
They think they're hurting Dems, but you're actually hurting Republicans too.
Yeah, you're hurting them too. So you're hurting people that people vote for, and that goes back to people that vote against their own interests. But basically, that's what they're doing with this Save Act, is basically trying to choke down the numbers, because that's the way they win elections. That's the way. The 2016, when the Bernie Bros didn't show up, when they didn't show up in 2016, that's what we had. You got a Trump win.
Well, I mean, this particular myth, they were specifically talking about that there are a lot of non-citizens, because we all have heard this floating around on social media. All these non-citizens, it's the same. I want y'all to think about, because Brett, you brought it up. When Trump was running, he made you think he likes the boogeyman. The boogeyman in his when he was running for president was the immigrants. Mm-hmm. They're eating the cats and eating the dogs. He turned you against them. They're taking your jobs. They're taking your black jobs. And now the boogeyman, these non-citizens, mm-hmm. they're out here and they're messing up our elections. You see the correlation between the two? He's trying to make you see or think or believe, like we don't have sense enough to Google it, that, wait a minute, bro, non-citizens, well, we didn't know this was a big deal. How many? Because so far, all I see, you got a handful. What was it? You gave a percentage, V.
It was 0.0000001%.
But they say they're millions. Guys, don't believe it.
No.
Don't believe it.
No.
Here's the second one. They said, look, the reason we like the Save Act is because it just ensures people are who they say they are. Take that one, V.
Yeah, I mean, that already is the case. This is, again, a solution in search of a problem. Seriously, you could say that you're going to have a blood test next in order to vote. I mean, this is what they're trying to do in order to limit people from voting. Again, this is voter suppression. This has nothing to do about voter integrity. And Republicans will defend it by saying the poll numbers, as I said before, that Americans want it. But again, the devil's in the details. Americans don't want to have their vote suppressed. They want their vote to be secure. And the way their vote is secure is by continuing what we honestly have here, which is state-controlled elections, not federally controlled elections. We want paper backups for the all electric voting, all machine voting, to have paper backups. And then the other thing is like, go to any country. Can you vote without an ID card? Well, do you know how much an ID card costs in most of Europe? I mean, a lot in a lot of places it's like $5.
Right.
You know, I mean. To get a birth certificate and an ID here, you have to spend hundreds of dollars.
Right.
And like I said before, when you have to make the difference, make a decision between getting ID and buying groceries, you are going to choose groceries.
That's it.
That is the difference here.
Hey,
It's all about suppression.
Hey, simple solution. You want the SAVE Act? Cool. You want everybody registered? Okay. Start issuing people passports and their birth certificates for free. Well, not for free, for what we already taxed.
Yeah, you're right.
That?
You're right.
We're already paying it, so just issue it out to everyone. You know, you have the records. Just run down the roll and print out all the American citizens that's proven to be American citizens and ship them out to people.
Completely. They could do that right now.
Send 2 copies.
What do you think about the SAVE Act, Charlie?
Well, another thing that I think of, when they're doing that is that if you put up a roadblock, how many people will not take the time to follow through? Because, everybody now is on that microwave society. And if you say, well, you got to go get this, you got to go get that, and you're already crunched for time, you're not going to take the time to go get it, to ensure that, when it comes time to vote, that, you're ready. It's just a case of taking the time to be prepared. And the way I see it is everybody should already have their documentation in place anyway, whether it's election time or not, because you never know what emergencies might come up that your documentation is needed. So by being prepared, you eliminate a lot of the distractions that they're putting there. That's what I think.
Yeah, but when you get people that were born, let's say from the South, 1960, 50, records were horrible back then. They really were. I mean, look at my birth certificate. It has the wrong birth date. I don't know when I was born, right? I'm from Alabama. I'm telling you, it's a real story. I didn't know until one day I went to try to get a new Social Security card. And I'm telling the people my birthday is June 4th, and they're like, no. I'm like, my mama always told me it was June 4th. Come to find out, my birth certificate actually said the 2nd. So what's right? And this is from Alabama. I was delivered by a midwife, no hospital, no fancy, nothing, just somebody putting the date on there. So the records were horrible. That's why I think this is aimed at African Americans. That's why I believe it is to suppress our vote, because they know this. If I know it, they know it too.
Right.
And yeah.
That's why I love. I mean, I have the utmost respect for Stacey Abrams. She ran for governor in Georgia, and the lieutenant governor who actually won the governorship purged 800,000 people off the road, off the roll. Just purged them. Now, Stacey, she had every right to cry and moan and say it was stolen. She didn't do that. She helped organize over 1 million people in Georgia to get registered and turn that state blue. Man, that's some awesome sugar honey iced tea, boy. Let me tell you something. Like that I respect that, because the power in registering people to vote it's endless. It really is.
And let me just add another thing as well. If you look back in the times of Jim Crow, you have a lot of interracial couples had to lie on the birth certificates of their children on all sorts of data, because it was illegal to have interracial children. Interracial marriage was illegal. And so a lot of those birth certificates, if you're a child of that era, well, then your birth certificate's all messed up as well. So you might have a birth certificate with a completely different name of your current ID, and that is going to get you in trouble with this law. So I understand what you're saying is that we should all be prepared, but there are so many cases of when we cannot rely on that. And then again, as I already mentioned, money matters here. It's another poll tax. Not everyone can afford to spend the $140, $150 on obtaining these documents, especially now. There was a poll that came out with the New York Times that said over 60% of Americans would go file for bankruptcy if they had to spend $1,000 on medical care or transportation. Now, you think that if that's the case, you think people that can barely spend $1,000 for their health are going to be able to spend $150 on identification? No. I mean, we are not overall, we are not a people that are just wealth with cash. I know we look at average numbers and median numbers, but we are a huge population of 340 million people, or whatever it is now. And there's a large, huge swath of the population that not only living paycheck to paycheck, sometimes they get paid on a daily basis. They don't have the luxury of knowing if I spend that $100 that I have in my pocket right now on an ID, will I get paid the day after tomorrow? And they don't know. And with that type of instability in their lives, you cannot expect people to then risk their putting food on the table for them and their families and say voting is more important than eating. You can't do that.
Well, why is it easier to purchase a assault rifle in Texas than it is to vote? I mean, I don't know. That sounds a little backwards to me. It's like we're going the wrong way. Oregon has it figured out. If you're born in the state of Oregon, you're automatically registered to vote once you turn 18, and you have to opt out to be purged off the road. Off the road. That's the way we should be going. We're not going the other way. We're going the other way now. I don't understand. Just regressive. Instead of progressives, they're regressives over there.
Yeah. Right. So, guys, before we get out of here, I want to make sure that we understand the two perspectives. I have on one side people that are for the SAVE Act, the other side people who are against it. Now, whereas people that are for the SAVE Act, they say that as far as integrity, they argue that the record high border crossings increase the risk of non-citizens influencing elections. Now, on the other side, they say, well, look, that points out that non-citizen voting is already a felony and extremely rare. Let's talk about that first.
Yeah, I mean, we know the percentages already. We know that it literally does not happen in any meaningful way. And of course, the Republicans, when you tell them that, they'll say, well, what about these small elections in this county or that county? I mean, they always try to come up with a way to make immigrants the boogeyman. They have been doing this for years. Laura Ingraham said this almost a decade ago, saying that the country has been changing and the demographics are changing and none of us voted for it and most of us don't like it. That is what she said a decade ago. And what is happening now today? Matt Walsh, Tucker Carlson on his new program are both saying the same thing. Matt Walsh is talking about how we have too many Muslims in here. And Tucker Carlson is saying that how we have too many Latinos. Charlie Kirk, before he died, he was saying that we have too many particularly men, Latino men that aren't white evangelicals in this country, and that LA's population in particular. There's a huge video about this that went viral, and I think I had something to do with it because I posted it everywhere. But basically, he was talking about the drop of how many white men, particularly evangelicals in LA, and the drop, and he had a chart, and somehow that's negative. That because we have, and he was talking about legal immigration here. We have illegal immigration of black and brown people. Somehow that devalues America. That was his message. His message is that white evangelicals make America great and black and brown people make America worse.
Yeah. At the end of the day, you just wrapped up that sermon. It's time to pass the collection plate because that's what it is, guys. And I know that Republicans feel overwhelmed because we talk about Black history. We're always making everything about race. Well, I mean, you started it. I know that sounds very elementary, but it's the truth. You started it.
It is.
Back when we showed this video at the beginning, it was the white supremacy that caused you not to want Black people to vote. This is what I think, that is exactly what we're trying to maintain: white supremacy. Anybody disagree with that on this panel?
Absolutely not.
That's what it's all boils down to.
What do you think, Charlie? You think that's it?
One question that I do have, though, is how will they manipulate the system with the ballots that they took in Georgia when midterm come?
I'm sorry, what was your question again?
The ballots that was taken during the raid, how will they use those? That's something that I've been thinking of. Now that they have them, they have people's contact information and stuff like that. Will they like reach out to them and say, okay, you missing this or you missing that, to create friction? Or
they're gonna comb through it, and then when they don't find anything, they're still going to put on the grandstand and show that they're cracking down on voter fraud, and they're going to show us the 6 people that were undocumented that voted, and then I mean it's a waste of time. It's a waste of time. It's like looking for nuclear bombs in a poor
Iraq?
neighborhood. Yeah, or even Iraq. Yeah.
But more than that, honestly, it's just intimidation. That is what it was done. It was publicized. It was PR. It was, we're taking action against voter fraud, and now it's intimidation on every other county. Because do you think even Democratic counties want to have Trump invited into their system? No. So now what he's saying is, do it, appease me, or I'm going to come in and I'm going to do even more. And this is just an intimidation tactic to show that he can throw his weight around. That's what it comes down to. It's not necessarily about any actual logistic thing that's going to change. It's about intimidation, and it's about voter suppression. That's what all of this is about.
I like what this viewer said, because I agree with this. They also prep the country for seizing other ballots in the future. Bing,
Absolutely.
Bing, bing. Hey guys, this is how we're going to do it. This is how we do it. And you see how they made it look like a crime? Because if they really just wanted to review and see whatever they need to see, they could go through DHS, correct? V, because
they could go through
access.
HSI.
Yeah,
HSI is literally designed to do that.
Yes. So that's one reason they prep the country for seizing ballots. I also think that they want to be able to guide who they want to purge through this system. And if he's in charge, now he can start looking at it and saying, okay, I need this one gone. And because guys, I want you to think about it, and you can Google this. Georgia has a very strict photo ID requirements for voting. They're very, very strict. They're like Florida. If you don't believe me, Google it. There are 3 that are similar to that. In Georgia and Florida, those are 2 that they're very strict. Like you just can't come with anything and try to vote. Doesn't work like that with them. So they were very confident, but they recounted and they still found the same thing. There's no issue, so it's all for intimidation. Trump is trying to prove that, like you guys have already insinuated here, that he's this tough guy. That's why they wanted to make it look like it was a crime happening.
He can only win elections if he's going up against a woman and voters don't show up. I mean, it is. That's the only way you can win.
Yeah. So, and let's, before we wrap up, guys, because I know I don't want to take you guys away, because I don't want V to be like, I like going to Ella's show, but she takes too long, right? And another thing for it, the verification, they said checking a box on a form isn't a sufficient safeguard for the sanctity of the vote. That's what the people that are for it say. Now, the people that oppose it, well, it creates a poll tax by requiring documents that millions of Americans, respectively, especially low income or elderly, may not easily have. And then this third one, well, it's about public trust. We want to restore the confidence in election results by ensuring only eligible voters participate. Now, the other side says it claims it places an unfunded mandate on local election offices months before major elections. So I want you guys to deal with that. And then we're going to tell folks what they need to do to prepare themselves, and we're going to get out of here. Y'all talk about those two. What do you
I,
got?
I think the poll tax, I've talked about that enough, but what I haven't talked about is about how do you build back trust in the election system. And you do that by not having a president that constantly says, I won the election even though I lost it. You don't constantly say, I won the 2020 election, and even though 60 court cases around the country said that he's lying, that Fox News had to pay almost $1 billion for their lies, that Giuliani is getting prosecuted and sued because he lied, or the My Pillow guy, or any one of the people that made the claims that Donald Trump won the election have been proven false in a court of law over 60 times. You want to have integrity at the ballot box and people to put faith in the election, stop saying that the elections are being stolen. That's number one. That's how you do it. Boom. And number two, you don't need voter ID laws are, it's like something that people think they want, but they don't really know what's going on. Like I said before, it's all about the devils in the details. And unfortunately, people don't have the time every day to look up these details. And I'm glad you have a show where people can put it on and actually learn the facts, because a lot of times, unfortunately, it's not as easy to get the facts anymore. When you look at Google, unfortunately now, everything is controlled by an algorithm. What you search on Google is going to be different from my search on Google based on your previous clicks before. Right? So when you search on something on Google and you talk about voter ID law, and let's say you're a Republican and you've clicked on links about going to Fox News, but now you're trying to see what's the truth. Unfortunately, Google is going to still point you to Fox News type of links to all those right-wing media. It is not as easy to look and get that information. So if I can, I just want to have just to give a few tips. Number one, use the private browser. Everyone knows incognito mode or private browser. Log out. Take the personal algorithms out of it. If you really want to search for information, don't be controlled by algorithms. And when you're searching, search privately. Search without being logged in. That will give you the raw results. Results where it looks like Google doesn't know who you are, so they are going to serve the results that actually match your request. There's more, but I needed to say that part out.
A VPN is what you're talking about? Use a VPN?
No, not a VPN. Simply on the browser, it says search if you're using Chrome, for example, it says search for incognito mode. Or if you're using another browser, it'll say search in private mode. You don't need to install any new software. It's already built into the browser that you have. And what it will do is it will basically block Google from seeing who you are in terms of logging in. So you're not logged in this mode. It doesn't know your algorithm history. It will simply serve you the results it would serve if they had no clue who you are whatsoever.
All right, man. I'm going to start using that.
That's a good idea. That's a good idea. I like it. Thank you so much. Love it. So, guys, we said all of this, and I know I've mentioned about the Freedom 1964. I just want to share with you guys some of the little pics here so you can see that this is kind of what things were going on. You see this? These three guys, they died for freedom, right? So it wasn't just black people out there. There were a lot of Caucasians out there in this fight as well, trying to get African Americans to vote. This is like 50 years later, right here. And this is some of the price they had to pay for voting, guys. That's why I wanted to do this show, because I need to put it in your face that what we're up against, this is not a black or a white thing. This is something that affects every single one of us. And it does today, just like it did back in 1964. These people were out there working together hand in hand, trying to protect the vote. And now what we see with this administration, they're trying to suppress us, take us all the way back. That's why we are here today. Now, before we leave, we want to make sure that we've given you some advice on what you can do now between now and the election. Check your status. Now, mind you, this hasn't been approved yet. I'm just preparing you for this because the Senate still has to vote on this. It could get shut down, or can it? I'll ask you that question in a second, V. Can it actually get shut down? Because Trump says he's gonna pass this anyway. But I'm gonna give you guys some tips here. Check your status today. Visit your Secretary of State's website. If there are any typos in your name or address, fix them now before the Senate passes the bill and the in-person requirement kicks in. Number two, Secure your golden documents. That's your birth certificate. If you need to get a passport or divorce decree, in my case. Why is your name different now than it was in your birth certificate? Well, I got married, and this is why it's Campbell. That kind of stuff. Look at all that. Get all your stuff together because it takes time for it to get to you. Number 3, monitor your registration. This is one that you have to do. Check it all the time because with this administration, you never know. You may be in there today, and then a month from now or 2 days before it's time to vote, you're not in there. So you want to constantly and consistently check your registration just to make sure it's showing active, your address is correct, there are no errors or anything, okay? Because it could get removed without even realizing it. So those are our tips. Now, before we get out of here, one more thing, Chubby V. Trump says that he wants to. He says he's gonna vote for this down no matter what happens.
Yeah, he's saying he's going to write an executive order that's going to do what the SAVE Act does without Congress. Again, essentially, he's saying that he doesn't care what happens in the Senate. He's going to write his own executive order. And the dangerous part here is that 26 governors control the states. We have more Republican governors than Democrats. So you have 26 Republican governors that will abide by his executive order. Additionally, you have 28 state legislators that control state governments. So combined, you literally have a majority of the states controlled by governments. We're not talking about this at the federal level here. We're talking about state. What that means is that they will almost certainly create new laws as close as possible to the election, so you can't do anything about it. And so what you have to do is you have to try to realize they are going to try to make it harder. So you have to get your stuff now. You have to try, if you can afford to do it, and get all the documents you can. Democrats are going to try to fight this everywhere. ACLU is going to fight civil lawsuits to stop this, but that doesn't mean they will be successful everywhere. As I mentioned, you have a lot of judges in Trump's pockets, and the Supreme Court is also in Trump's pocket. So what you have to do instead is be vigilant. And as you've already said, look at your voter registration, get your documents, try to save your money so you can afford those documents. It's February now, but you got to pretend like you need to save up for it before October, because you can't even talk about November. There are so many laws that you need 30 days or sometimes 6 weeks in order to update your voter registration. So the sooner, the better. And like you said, don't just check it now, check it every month. It takes 2 seconds out of your day. Check it, make sure, because they won't even send you a letter saying that you've been kicked off the voter rolls. Right. You will have no idea. It's up to you to check it. Make sure you do this. And again, keep in contact with your local ACLU and local civil rights organizations. Almost every state has them. I don't know about any county, but almost every state. Immerse yourself in what's going on in your local laws, in your local counties, and make sure that you stay up to date. Don't just join a Facebook group. I'm talking about actually registering to get emails and newsletter information from the local civil rights organizations in your county. They will help you. You can call them, you can email them, they can help you. Don't just say, oh, it's too hard, I'm not going to do this. It is up to you to save this country right now. Up to all of us, every single one of you. Don't think that someone else will do the work for you. You have to do that work.
Oh, that was a sermon.
Yeah.
That was a sermon right there. I tell you. Who's ready to pass the collection plate? Charlie, you can sing. Charlie, you can sing the hymn for us. Go ahead and bring us into. Woo, that was great, guys. This has been an amazing conversation. Listen, I know that this is something that's on my heart to do is I think that we have to also put our money where our mouth is here for the Ella Johnson Show. And what I'd like to do, maybe in a couple months or so, we can have some kind of drive where we raise funds to assist people who are in need of getting these documents. The sad part about it is you can't really do anything online. When it comes to this registration, you can't do anything online, right, V? Everything you got to go in person for now.
Yeah, I mean, raising funds is also difficult because you will have people, prosecutors saying you're trying to bribe someone to vote, and so it's you have to be very careful now because they pass laws saying giving a bottle of water to someone in line is akin to bribing them to vote. Right, that's what happened in Georgia. So we have to be really careful the way because these people really don't want black and brown people to vote, and they will do whatever it takes to stop you from it. And so you have to be really careful, really vigilant. And what we should do, in my opinion, is I would recommend the ACLU, but I would recommend ACLU in specific counties where it's going to hurt the most. If we can identify that, and because those are the places where they're going to have to fight the laws. They need all the help they can get, and it's not just money. Sometimes it's just your body going out there, standing in front of a grocery store to make sure you're telling people how they can vote and what they can do. It's not always money. It's just using your time, your value as a human being, and standing where people are and getting them to the polls. That isn't illegal yet, so you can still do that.
Because isn't it illegal to feed homeless in Florida?
In some places it is. You need a particular type of permit. Yeah.
Man, can you imagine getting locked up because I'm trying to share some food? That would be funny. I'd be live all in the back of the police car. Right?
Yeah.
Well, guys, I want to make sure that everyone says their say here. This has been a great broadcast. I want to thank you guys for coming in. Charlie, I hate that you weren't in at the beginning. It was a great conversation. Brett, you popped in hour 2, but it's all good. We're glad you were able to make it. And of course, V, I appreciate you. This was our first time meeting, but I saw you on Facebook and I saw how present you were in the topic of politics. And I was like, wow, I would love to have this guy on my show because he could really explain it to my viewers. So thank you.
Thank you for having me on.
Yeah. So anything else, Charlie, you want to say, or Brett, before we get out of here?
Don't boo, vote. Don't boo, vote. Your choice is your voice. If your vote wasn't so important, they wouldn't go through all this stuff to try to suppress it.
Very good point. Very good point. What did you say, Charlie?
I said absolutely. I agree.
All right. Well, guys, it's been real. I hope you guys got something out of this. We just hope, but I'll be back tomorrow night, 8:30. Tomorrow I'll be here at 8:30. And it's going to be a very interesting topic tomorrow night as well. Now, I'm going to get out of here tonight because I'm about to be a grandmother for the 7th time tonight. Whoa. So when I leave here, I am heading right to the hospital. Yes, with my daughter. So I'm excited, but I'll be back here tomorrow. Black gold. Guys, you're not going to believe some of the stuff I ran across about just who's actually getting the benefit out of our Black men in prison. You'd be surprised. We're going to talk about all of the Black men that were killed by police who were unarmed, Trayvon, that's just one, Breonna Taylor, different ones, but we're going to talk about that. We're going to tie it all together to Black history because I'm going to be honest with you. When I put the two together about prisons and why they say what they say about there's criminals and there's war on crime. All of that was just a ploy to get the attention to Black people to justify throwing them in prison, putting drugs in our communities, making sure that they ended up in prison. And you think that, oh my God, the Black history is just bad. No. There's money at the end of it. We're going to talk about all that tomorrow night right here on the Ella Johnson Show. All right, guys. We'll see you next time. Have a great night.
Right. Night all.
Peace.
Thank you so much for tuning in to the Ella Johnson Show. We'll see you next time.
We are supporters of the Ella Johnson Show. We live in South Korea. We have been watching Ella Johnson Show for like a year now. And we love her show. Her show is very inspirational, motivational, and educational.
If you would like to be a guest on the Ella Johnson Show, send an email to theellajohnsonshow@gmail.com or send a text message to 407-334-6997.
We love Ella Johnson Show.